So we know about it. We know that it has been quite a long time since there was an assessment. We know, like you just said, that it has a very large impact on the revenue into the city. We did not touch on it or go deeper than understanding that it has happened or hasn't happened, and knowing the impact that it has on the budget. But in terms of making any suggestions to do a reassessment, I think that's out of the city's control.
Yeah, we did. I noticed that Sam and Claire talked about it in depth with the city treasurer, about the impact that that's having. And it's factored the fact that it is out of the control of the city, and it has basically shows that there's not a great interest in the authority to do any reassessments on a timely basis. That's all factored into our financial model. The fact that that's part of the circumstance that Sunbury faces.
Right. The assessment is indeed out of the city's control. That would be a county endeavor, but the recommendation for the city to perhaps lobby or have conversations with the county's chief elected officials, also known as the commissioners, certainly might not, might be advantageous on behalf of the city when they're looking at, obviously, the longer reassessment goes without being accomplished, property rates are declining, let's face it. And to get up to current assessment would help the city a great deal on the revenue side. I just looked at a chart in the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue, and Northumberland County is, out of the 66 counties, Northumberland County is the 6th highest common level tax ratio, basically meaning that the county hasn't reassessed probably. It was 6.4, I think it was the common level tax ratio, probably indicating it hasn't been reassessed since the 60s.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of money sitting on the table as a result of that lack of reassessment. And perhaps that would be a recommendation for the city to at least have that discussion with the county's elected officials. That's all I have to add. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I would be interested in hearing from the city about their thoughts on that. We certainly, would be glad to weigh in about what best practices are in regards to reassessments. I mean, we've done a lot of work in that area, but since this is a report to the city, we don't want to either put them in a position vis-a-vis county officials that appear confrontational or adversarial. So if the city feels that such a recommendation on our part would be helpful to them, we would be glad to weigh in on that.
Sure, if the city would be inclined, I agree, Ray. I just wanted to mention that because I was looking at the last time that Northumberland County was reassessed. Thank you.
We'd be interested to see. We'd have to look at, what that would do, because there's, I guess, the other side of that is you look at the reassessment and your tax rates go up across the board. Now you're looking at, your goal is to try to increase your property ownership versus your renting, which is what we see as significant right now as a renter's population versus the ownership. So is that across the state, when a reassessment's done, does that deter or influence more ownership? And then the same thing on business. If we were to put in Alerta, which we're looking at doing, along with the reassessment, then that makes it a little bit easier because then those businesses can take advantage of those credits. But without that, it may be a little bit more difficult. But I'd be interested to get, I guess, more info from a state level as far as like what other municipalities have seen that have gone through that besides just bringing in the extra money on the bottom line.
Sure. I think we can come up with something like that. And the Alerta for the businesses that are in the city is certainly something you want to look at if that's if that's something you can get accomplished on the reassessment side of things, Councilman.
Well, I would note too, though, that if you have really modern practices and reassessment, you as the city commission really have good control over that that tax impact, in the sense that you can adjust your millage rates. If for example reassessment says that property values have gone up 10%, you can say, well, let's reduce our millage rate by 8 mills in order to just make sure that we've got, let's say, a 1% increase in our actual tax revenue. So it really makes you much more of a strong player in your own fortune from our perspective. Right now, the only control you have is to go to the maximum. So it would, I think, put more arrows in your quiver if there was a really strong and professional approach to reassessment and reevaluation.
Yeah, it makes sense. It'd be interesting to see that as one of the recommendations to make it easier with the county, for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll wait for your feedback in regards to that after you've had time to discuss it amongst yourselves.
We're out of time because we do have a council meeting we have to start. Honestly, I think we should, in my opinion, this will be up to the mayor and the council, but I know I have a few questions that I wasn't able to get in, so maybe we should do another session just to make sure that we have all the questions answered and I's dotted, T's crossed, so to speak. So maybe another session to hash everything out.
That would be perfect. Give you a chance to talk about what came out of this session amongst yourselves, schedule another session, so that we get, the benefit of your feedback and your considered opinions.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll coordinate all that.
All right. Sounds good to us. Thank you for taking the time this evening to meet with us. It's been very valuable.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Hey, look, it's the dude.
All right, Derek, are you there?
Yes, I'm just working on getting everything going.
All right. Since we are all virtual via Zoom for this, if you don't mind, Derek, if you can run the meeting, since you have all the documents right in front of you, you can go down the agenda and state whose place it is.
Yep.
And then everybody that is on the Zoom call, just as a friendly reminder, the public comment section will be at the end. And if you do, please keep your phone or your computer, keep it on mute if you're not speaking.
second, Mayor. Okay, we are good, Mayor. You want to call the meeting to order?
Okay, do you need to stop recording and start recording to separate it?
He did. I already did.
You did? Okay.
Yep. Whenever you'd like to call it to order, Mayor.
Oh, I apologize. I had myself muted. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Karlovich,
Here.
Reichner,
You guys are muted down there.
you guys are muted.
Here.
Reese,
Here.
Brocious,
Here.
Eister,
Here.
okay.
An executive session was held on February 9th, 2021 to discuss personnel matters. Is there any public comment on agenda items only at this time? Again, is there public comment on agenda items only at this time? Okay. All right. UGI discussion?
First, are you on?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So my name is Christian Rossini. I'm with UGI. I was asked to jump on this meeting tonight to answer any questions regarding our Market Street improvement project that's slated to start this spring. What questions I can answer, I will. What I can't, I will take back with me and get you some answers.
Okay, if you could just briefly explain the project for everyone.
Basically, we are going to do a system improvement, which is going to start at Front Street and be on Market Street down to basically in between South Horn Railroad Path, I believe is the name of the road, and North A Street. It will stop. And then we will be also on 7th Street from Chestnut to Market, and then on North 6th from Market to Woodlawn. And basically this is getting the last remaining steel and cast iron natural gas main out of the ground and replace that with plastic. As well as renewing all the services that are throughout Market Street.
The timeline for the project.
Christian, this is Councilman Eister. The other day when we spoke at the meeting with Welker here, Steve, I think the main thing you're going to run into are the meters in front of the establishments. I think that's something you got to talk to the property owners or send a letter out, explain to them
regarding the meter. I think that's going to be your biggest problem.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a battle. I believe next week or the following week, we're going to have some technicians go out and just do a canvass of the area. There will be a press release that's going out with any homeowner or business that's affected. So they will get a heads up, but we're going to try and get ahead of the process here, and some of these harder to reach ones, reach out to them, get a handle on where we can move these meters to.
Thank you.
What's the timeline of the project?
Christian, did you hear that?
Timeline, we are tentatively looking to start April 1st. We're waiting on a few permits yet with the railroad and PennDOT. 90% of this project is in PennDOT right of way. So we're waiting on those permits, and I think a very conservative estimate would probably be 3 months, 2.5.
Will it be kind of like how 4th Street was, North 4th Street, where traffic will be able to remain open for most of the time, just with periodic closures? Or will it be shut down?
Once again, those, we have to wait for our HOP to come back from PennDOT. That'll specify. I know we do not have anything slated for a detour at this point. So once we get our HOP back from PennDOT, that'll clearly define, what we're going to have open. I'm sure everything will be flowing. We may have periodic shutdowns to move equipment, but as far as shutting a street down for any length of time, I wouldn't foresee PennDOT allowing that.
What are the lines that go down Market? Are they mostly in the parking stalls that will be cut, or will the cuts be mostly in the middle of the road?
The cuts will be. I did provide a set of plans there. I don't know if you guys got them. Most of the cuts will be in the parking lanes. Where the park is will be on either side of the park. And then it's going to be on the north side until it hits 4th Street. And then we're going to jog to the south side, if I'm correct.
Okay.
But once again, when we get our HOP back, it'll clearly define the restoration as well. But most of everything will be in the parking lane.
Will there be any supply stoppage for current businesses and residents regarding the gas?
They will be interrupted when we reach that point, just to run their news service, basically move their meter from their basement to outside. So their gas will be off, I wouldn't say for any great length of time. We'll have it off and back on within a day. Just a matter of running the news service and then disconnecting the old and then doing the pipe out from the outside meter to where it was inside. So generally that's less, we always get them back on that same day. Nobody will be without gas for any major length of time.
Okay, and how much space does these replaced meters going to take up?
It's hard to say. Some of these buildings have multiple meters in them. So, generally if you drive down any street in Sunbury, you can get a handle on what an average residential house meter is. It's, I don't know, maybe a 2 foot by 2 foot square. Some of these larger buildings have larger meters, which we're going to look into seeing if we can decrease that load and possibly put smaller meters there.
Put them inside the building.
And you're planning on putting these on the exterior of each of the buildings on Market Street on the sidewalks, correct?
Correct.
You're a fucking lazy, unimaginative bastard.
Jim, do you not foresee any issues regarding this since we already have limited space on Market Street?
Yes, that's what I was mentioning, notifying the property owners, trying to resolve that issue. If there's a walkway between the two structures, possibly set it along the side. But even for appearance, because we have a lot of historical buildings, I mean, just like the Edison Hotel, you really don't want to meter. Now that situation, I think, could be put alongside along the 4th Street side, but and I'm not even sure it may be there now, but I was looking at the historical value of our properties downtown.
Well, you lucked out on the Edison. That comes off the rear, so there'll be nothing at the Edison.
Okay, see, you're a saver already, Chris.
And please keep in mind, too, that, we're mandated by the PUC to have these meters moved outside as part of this project.
It's a
Basically,
good excuse.
it's strictly for safety. I think it was 2034 is when the all has to be out.
Yeah, we have thousands upon thousands of meters to have moved out by 2034, and then we have, a yearly quota. So this Market Street will take a big bite out of our yearly quota as far as getting meters moved outside.
Do you have a total number of meters that you're going to be moving on the exterior?
I don't hold me to this number, but I do believe it's around 180.
Wow.
I don't think that number is quite accurate, though, because like I said, if you look at the Market House, for example, there are, 10 meters in that basement. So that's going to count as one meter move out, but it's 10 services, so that number gets inflated. I think I would look more towards around 80 to 90. But once again, don't quote me on that. I can get you actual numbers.
Okay. I just feel moving 180 of these meters to the sidewalk on Market Street is going to be a negative effect on our downtown. Any other council members have anything else?
Mayor, I just want to add that from my understanding, the Public Utility Commission is the one mandating it, so I don't think UGI necessarily has a choice. We don't have any room between our buildings, so we don't really have a good option. And Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. Moving on.
Obviously we're...
Council members have anything else for this topic? All right. Thank you for giving us that little brief and update.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have plenty more meetings to come as we get closer to the project.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the city controller for discussion. So I believe we only received 2 letters of interest from someone interested in the controller position. So I would like to know what process the council would like to do. Do you want to hold a public special session so that we can interview both of the candidates publicly and ask our questions to them? That way the public can hear this, or how would you like to proceed, council?
Based on all the recommendations, based on you guys have done a lot of research on qualifications needed for controller. Did you get a chance to go there in your research to look at, these and see who meets those qualifications out of the ones we got?
Joel, I'll refer to your legal expertise on this.
Sorry, I was unmuting. Can you hear me?
Yep.
There, as I stated in an email last week, there is really no set, how shall I say, requirement at this point, according to the state, that a controller be an actual accountant. The controller has to be someone who is knowledgeable about the areas of the work. However, the state has taken the position that it is not necessary to be a controller. Therefore, there really is no requirement other than the requirements to be 21 years of age and be a resident of the city. So I can't say that there's a legal necessity of choosing either candidate. I think that the issue becomes which candidate is more, how should I say, has more training and or education and is better prepared to take over the position, but that is up to council. I won't weigh in on that discussion.
You guys down there have any input?
But just like everybody to know, I spoke with the treasurer, and we have $600,000 of bills to be paid as of right now. That counts a $446,000 contract bill plus the other bills, and we cannot pay the bills without the controller being on board.
And Joe, are we able to pass by resolution an actual designated signature person in the interim?
Can you pass by resolution an actual designated signature person? No. You can appoint a controller and or a assistant controller can be hired. However, I don't believe that we're in a position at this point to hire an assistant controller because it hasn't been advertised, anything like that. I think that at this point, we are stuck with appointing a city controller unless you want to move the deadlines out and go into a, process of hiring a part-time controller or an assistant controller, I should say, not part-time.
Whoever gets appointed, they'll have to run this year, right? They'll have to go in. It's up this year. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
Vote in November for the remaining term of, yes.
Okay.
Something
So it's
else.
really only a 8-month appointment, or 10-month appointment.
Yes, and then they would have to run to fill that position for that remaining.
Are you sure about that? Don't they fulfill that to the remaining of the 4-year term?
No,
Once
it says
somebody resigns or passes away or anything like that, and once council appoints somebody in that position, isn't it for the remaining of that elected term?
no.
No, only for the next election possible, and then it's voted upon. Correct, Joel?
That's correct. It goes to the next election, which is more than 200 days from the date of the resignation or death, etc., of the controller. As long as that election is more than 200 days, it must be decided within the confines of the next election.
That'd be this one.
Yeah, correct.
So a 10-month appointment.
Chris, we got
Well, the other, I just want to jump in quickly and remind everyone that we also have a 30-day window to make an appointment, or else the court will make an appointment for us. And I don't know what day we're on at this point, but we're going to be getting dangerously close to that if we push it off to another meeting.
Chris,
And again, I don't have a dog in the fight. I just wanted to make that clear.
Chris,
Mhm.
this is Jim. Right now, we have two applications. I know the one has a degree in accounting,
Yeah.
which is Mr. Alex. We got $600,000. We got contractors looking for their money. We have to pay bills.
Yep.
So we're to the point in knowing the fact that in November, the person's going to be coming up for election anyhow. We have to make a move. So at that point, since we're stagnated here, I'm going to make a motion. We appoint Jerome Alex.
Hold on, Jim. Hold on, Jim.
No.
Yes, I have some serious concerns regarding this process.
Okay, Joel just made a decision. Were you paying attention? Now what do you want to do, Mr.
All
Mayor?
right, first off, this is the issue when a elected position becomes vacant. It allows council to vote whoever they deem is fit to fill that position. We only received 2 letters of interest. The one candidate that sent in a letter of interest also sent in a resume explaining what their past experience is, okay? The other candidate that you're referencing only sent in a letter of interest. What all boards, what commissions are they on? What's their current employment? What's their history?
Mr. Mayor, did we ask for all the information prior to? No.
Well, we are, okay, that's fine. But we are appointing someone to a public elected position.
I know what we're doing here.
Before any motions are made to fill this vacancy, we should hear from these 2 candidates to find out exactly what are the current census to make sure that there's no conflict of interest.
Well, first of all, Mr. Mayor, you should have brought this up a week ago. We knew this was coming to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I have a motion on the table. Derek?
And I have some concerns regarding the treatment of people by this person you're doing.
Derek, you have a second.
No, this candidate that you are making a motion, Councilman Eister, what boards, what commissions are they on? What is their current employment?
I don't have the answer because we didn't ask this question, did we?
I know presently he's on the planning commission, I know that.
Well, right now the candidate he is referring to is online, so is he allowed to say, answer the question?
We go to motion in a second.
And Joe, is there any kind of a conflict here having the elected official also on the zoning board?
He can resign
have-
once he's appointed.
Once they're appointed, they may have to resign, whoever it might be.
And for a point of order, this is we're only under the discussion portion of this. The appointment actually comes later under new business, just for the clarity of process.
Thank you, Derek.
Then let's move on.
All right. So, Jamie Schroeder.
I had to unmute, sorry. Just like everybody else. Can you hear me okay?
Mayor, you skipped the PD construction project bids for discussion.
All right. PD construction bid.
Sorry, Jamie.
Mr. Strasser.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we opened bids. Bids were due on Friday of last week. There were 8 bids received. We reviewed them all. All 8 contractors submitted all the required paperwork with their bids. So all seem to be responsible bidders. The apparent low bidder is Hepco Construction with a base bid of $829,235. It is pretty close to our estimate with the final design of the project. So we are basically awaiting, any direction from the city to, I guess confirm anything directly with HEPCO and or what alternates may or may not be you be interested in accepting, and to from that point take the next step, assuming you decide to move forward with the project.
All right, so Councilman Ister, which alternatives can we reduce? Are we able to demolish the ceiling and the floors ourselves in-house like we were previously discussing?
Well, first of all, Ted, my question to that, on the demolition, could you get into the contract and define in detail exactly what that consists of under their bid?
Yes, that would be a smart thing to do before that alternate was accepted, just to make sure everybody's understanding of what that is, expectation-wise.
If you could accomplish that, appreciate that. The sooner the better, so we can put a plan together what we can do, what we can't do.
Yep.
Also, the last column, I think there's an error there. It says total if all alternates are selected, the price goes down.
Correct. All of the alternates were deduct alternates.
Okay, I see what you've done.
So that's if you accepted all of them. That last column would be the number. You obviously have the ability to select any combination of those four alternates or none.
That's true. So, Ted, you can get that back to us. We can review that and make a decision from there.
Will do.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now Jamie Shrod.
Now it's my turn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. All right, so the first thing I have on the agenda is the updates to the procedures for the resident subsistence program. So as we've gone through this program as a group at CDCOG, we've discovered certain things that maybe we hadn't addressed originally. So there are a couple items that we updated on the operating procedure that we had the city adopt there a few months ago that I just wanted to bring back for you to approve as the amended operating procedure. You can see the list there. There's a acknowledgement form that basically the applicant is certifying that they understand all of the things that relate to duplication of benefits. There is a utility assistance certification, which if a resident is applying for assistance to pay back bills to the municipal authority, we would have to work with the municipal authority to execute that form. There is some regulations that go along with projects that are paid for at the municipal authority with federal funds. It's one of those steps we have to take. The certification of cost reasonableness, which is DCED's way of documenting that the rent or mortgage meets the fair market values that we discussed in the past. The eviction certification form is one that is updated because the form that we have from HUD was expired in January when the original moratorium on evictions expired, and we don't have a new form. So we updated it so that we have one that's currently valid. And then there were some changes that were highlighted on the SOP that you were given. So basically, I just need council to approve those changes to the procedure for the subsistence program.
I'll make the motion to do everything you just suggested.
Who was the second?
I'll second it. Rick was.
Thank you. Karlovic?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Brochus?
Yes.
Eister?
Yes.
Okay, so this week I should have some information from CSO in regards to who has applied and such. So we should be getting some of that money out on the street fairly soon. The other item I have on the agenda, once again, is your 2017 funds. Last time I was here, we did a revision to move those funds to the business relief program. DCED has come back and said, no, you can't put that money in the business relief program because it's under urgent need, which we all feel they are wrong, but you can only fight them so far and get so far. So in order to simplify the whole thing, I am suggesting now we put your 2017 money into your CSO rent, mortgage, utility, your subsistence program for residents in order to get that money spent. So I'm suggesting that you approve this revision of 2017 money from Reagan Street to the CSO rent, mortgage, utility, food relief program activity.
I put that into a form of a motion. Do I have a second? Second.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovich.
Yes.
Okay, so that's all I have. Was there any other questions for me?
Amy,
All right, guys, thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Councilman Reichner, invoices.
Okay, I'm seeking approval to pay for the accounts payable of $104,457.32 from the general fund, and there are no liquid fuel expenses at this time. So I make the motion that we pay those bills.
Second.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovich,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
Just another, like, a quick question on that. Like, we don't have a controller. Obviously, we can't pay those bills. So there's something to think about here as we move forward. That's all I have to say.
All right. The Shade Tree Commission, make a motion to appoint Julie Brochus to the Shade Tree Commission since Beth Kramer resigned from it. Do I have a second?
Unmute.
No. Second.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovich,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
Yes.
And just for public comment, she is no relation to myself.
All right. So since we already know who Councilman Eister wants, is Alex or Jerome Alex on here?
Give me a second.
I am.
Yes. Could you please tell us what current commissions or boards that you're serving on?
The only board I'm on for the city is actually the planning commission.
Thank you.
And that's an unpaid position.
And Joe, if this applicant would be chosen for the position, would he need to resign from the planning commission?
Yes, he would.
Thank you.
Jerome, could you just give us maybe a little bit of a background or some of your qualifications, just so they're aware to us and to the public, if you happen to be the one that is selected for this position?
Sure. I have about 31 years of experience in county government, ranging from managing a fiscal IT department along with the administration, overseeing contracts, budgets, development of budgets, reviewing of contracts, developing contracts, lease agreements, overseeing the IT department and the functions of making sure that all our IT staff and the operations of the systems are updated. I've done a lot of purchasing and overseeing purchasing, and I work closely with a lot of state officials as well as county officials.
Thank you. Do you have any type of degree or some
I have an associate's degree in accounting.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know the last time you're in the county for 31 years. What type of budget or estimated funds would you say you might have been in charge of? You said you did budgeting and contracts and things like that. If you have that number, I mean, I know those numbers
there's a lot of numbers. I don't think you have that number off the top of your head by chance.
Well, I do know some of those numbers off the top of my head because I work with them, and I can tell you they're significantly greater than what the county or the city budget is.
Okay.
The budget right now that we're working under is called a block grant, and the City Department of Human Services for a number of county programs. Right now, our gross budget is around $12 million. And that number is down. At one time, we were up to about $30 million. But with the advent of the 2176 waiver, and which a lot of people probably don't know what that is, but it's under the welfare program. When that was taken to make direct payments from the state to providers, they also reduced our budget for the amount of money that we were involved in with that. We didn't lose the money, it's just the way they do the payment process. So right now, I do some consultant work with the county in the department that I retired from. And our budget right now is, like I said, around $12 million.
Thank you. Is Lisa, is she on by chance?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
No, that's all the questions I had for you, Jerome. Thank you for answering them. I was just going to ask, is Lisa on by chance? I'd like to ask her the same question. If not, that's not. Okay, no, that's all the questions I've had. Thank you. Anyone else have questions, possibly for anybody?
I don't.
Derek, I once again make the motion, throwing Alex to the position of board. Need a second.
I'll second it. Is that Barocious?
That was right there for a second.
Thank you. Eister?
Yes.
Karlovich?
No.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Barocious?
Yes.
Hello, this is Jerome again. I just want to thank everybody for the vote, and I hope to work well with council and the treasurer, Kevin Troop, and I hope to meet your needs and be able to assist you in a lot of ways. I have a lot of experience in the government with analysis and audits and budgets. Thank you.
Jerome, this is Councilman Reichner. Could you please get with Mr. Troop tomorrow? We need to get those signature cards signed as soon as possible so we can start signing checks.
Absolutely. I'll get a hold of him first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you could please get us your resignation letter from the Planning Commission as well.
Sure. Is that what you want, Mr. Reese?
Thanks.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, main thing, I don't necessarily, for formality, you might have to resign, but
it was a recommendation by our solicitor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He'll have to resign. I think him being appointed means he resigns. So I think that
yes,
it's done. So
yes.
I don't know if there's any of that. But what I do need, though, is Planning Commission to choose a new representative for the Blight Review Committee. So that we'll have to either talk with them internally to see if anyone wants to do that, or quickly put out interest for Planning Commission. Have people submit letters of interest for that.
Yeah, Mr. Reese, just so you know that the next Planning Commission isn't until, if we have one, wouldn't be till the third Thursday in March. He just did ours last week online, and there was only one project. As far as the representative to the Blighted Property Committee, when we discussed that, the reason I stayed on that was because there really wasn't any interest from anybody else to be on there.
Okay.
So you're going to need to, two things are going to have to happen with the Planning Commission. One, you're going to have to replace myself, and then they're going to have to vote to redo the officers because I was the chairman of the board.
Yeah, and so so we'll make sure that with the letters of interest that we're getting, hopefully people understand that we would like that person to probably be that representative on the Blight Review Committee as well. So
yeah, it would be nice if you solicited letters for interest in who wanted to be on that committee, because I think there's a lot of work that was going to be coming through with some different items.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weiss, do I need to give a letter, or my verbal resignation, is that sufficient for tonight?
I would recommend you give a letter just so we have something on copy in the clerk's office.
No problem. I'll get one developed.
I agree.
And
All right, Joe.
do I need to be sworn in?
Oh my God, this guy just doesn't shut up.
Well, was Dan sworn?
I honestly don't know off the top of my head.
We could do a special session if need be for that, Joel, couldn't we?
Well,
Right, we could if necessary.
we could if necessary, but if he's appointed and replacing at the election, I think it would, without reviewing the law, I think the appointment would come after the election. He has been appointed to fill that term. And, we'll check to see if he needs to be sworn in.
Of course he has to be sworn in. Dumb shit.
All right, Joe.
Yes,
military
sir.
buyback, please.
The military buyback section of the police pension for the city of Sunbury, we are going to make the change thereto such that the police officers will no longer be limited to a period of eligibility of 90 days following the end of their probationary period. So what that means is previously our officers had to make an election to buy back their military's time for purposes of the police pension within 90 days of going on to their regular employment instead of their probationary period. We are going to be, or the proposal is that the language requiring a election within the 90-day period simply be removed, and that the police be able to make that election at any time, which is statutorily acceptable.
Joel, question. If the officer decides to wait till the last day of his employment, must he have that paid in full by the time he officially is retired or resigned?
Absolutely, that's under the statute.
Thank you.
Yep.
So make a motion to accept the first reading.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Meister.
Thank you. Karlovic?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Brocious?
Yes.
Meister?
Yes.
All right, Joe, it's you again. The uniform disciplinary policy and procedures. The non-uniform.
The Mayor, just to be clear, are you skipping on purpose the part-time police officers?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at an older copy here.
No problem.
All right, Chief Hare. Regarding the part-time police officer procedures, can you describe that or explain that for the council?
Yeah, the mayor asked me to perform, to put a policy together, a little bit better policy on hiring part-timers, because prior to that, we were just hiring people with a generic application and then just hiring them on the spot. So I don't know if the part-time policy was sent out to everybody, if that's in your packets. If not, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy, but I did send it out. It's very brief. Basically, there's an application process, which includes obviously a medical exam, interview with myself. We do an extensive background investigation, just like we do full-timers. We are going to require even our part-timers that we hire to do a psychological examination, and then basically a recommendation for hire. Some of the other questions the mayor wanted me to present to council is, what in the budget we have about $25,000 for part-time help, which equals to about 24 hours a week. And basically, a part-timer will be trained as if they were a full-time employee, because we have to make sure that they have the same skills and training as a full-time officer has. So what's nice about it is if you hire somebody that is already working somewhere, a lot of times they bring that skill set with them of the minor stuff that we don't have to worry about, like as when we hired Officer Ketchum, Officer Tamborelli. A lot of them that we hired full-time had some skill set that they brought to the department, so it wasn't as extensive, but they still go through the same length of a process. So depending on their skill set, the training could be longer. Again, we prefer to have somebody with experience, but the policy itself just basically goes through and goes into a little bit better detail of what's expected of a part-time officer.
So is there any questions from council regarding the policy? All right, so I make a motion to accept this part-time police officer policy and procedure. Do I have a second?
Second.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovic.
Yes. All right, Joe, now it's you for the disciplinary policy.
Okay. The non-uniform employee disciplinary policy and procedure for the city was changed last year, and quite honestly, we're updating that to, it's not a whole lot of changes, but there are several things that stand out. One would be that personnel records will be maintained by the city for a minimum of 3 years. There is a separate first, second, and third offense procedure. The group 1 offenses would remain the same, being neglect of duty, failing to report injury, carelessness, playing tricks or jokes, disregard for the comfort of fellow workers, etc. Group 2 offenses would include any group 1 offense which is of a higher level or a 4th occurrence of a group 1 offense. And a group 3 offense, which would result in immediate dismissal, would include consumption of intoxicants while working, failure to submit to a blood or alcohol test, deliberate destruction, theft, or removal of city property, sexual or discriminatory harassment, gross insubordination, etc. Now, the other main thing is that we are now going to be appointing the city clerk as the human relations officer, and all reports by employees regarding disciplinary referrals shall first be made to the department supervisor, unless the department supervisor is the offending employee, in which case the employee shall report the same directly to the human relations officer, again being the city clerk. All investigations will be performed by the department supervisor and presented to the human relations officer, who can perform further investigation if necessary, and who will then make a decision as to the avenue of discipline relative to the offense. These will be executed by each employee as being aware of the same, and the new process will be instituted simply to clear up a couple of things that were outstanding with the old process, and to make everything even more clear as to a chain of command regarding disciplinary procedure.
I have a question, Joel, on the group 1 offenses.
Yes.
For more than third offenses, has there been a discussion on what degree of suspensions would be there before possible termination if the offense?
Yeah. Yes, Rick. First would be a suspension. The suspensions would all be with no pay. A first suspension would be 1 day. A second suspension would be 3 days, and a third suspension would result in termination.
Thank you.
Yep.
Joel, thank you for this eliminating, because I think we have a couple situations this would have possibly eliminated the problems we have today.
Agreed.
We need to vote to accept this policy, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
I'll make a motion that we accept this policy.
A second it.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Ister,
Yes.
Karlovich,
Yes.
Reichner.
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Reese, your department supervisor.
Yeah, we had put out a ask for applications a while back at the end of last year, and went through interviews. Went through a couple interviews, and came to recommendation that our best candidate is Jeffrey. And I know he's on the line, and I don't want to butcher his last name, so I'm going to let him say that if all goes well here. But Wojciechowski? Am I close? I can see you. All right. Close enough. All right. So we'd like to, basically my motion is to hire him as our full-time department supervisor as an exempt salaried employee at a wage of $40,000. Do I have a second or any question?
Oh, what do you plan for this position to do?
Basically to oversee the entire department, oversee the daily activities, and we have a lot of new policies and procedures that are being adopted in the code office with all of these new ordinances that we passed last year. Basically putting all of those through and making sure that each code officer is following the same process for basically holding people accountable to the code. So, right now there's really no one to oversee that. So going through everybody, making sure we're all doing it in a uniform policy process, and then working on our ways to become more efficient over time. So there's definitely a lot of things that need to become more efficient, and we can move things more towards technology usage and things like that too. This will all go in hand that we have open the applications for a full-time code officer as well to go, like I said to you guys, to go more in line with what the stamp recommendation is for the department, how it should be operating. And, we think that Jeffrey can do a really good job of overseeing that. He has a lot of experience in department supervision. He was a prison, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this then, Jeffrey, I think it was a staff command was the title or something like that, where you oversaw 80 plus prison guards and we're part of the union, and a lot of good supervisory experience. So we like that as we went through that with you.
Chris, the only comment I have is I think Jeff should have the opportunity to come in and spend at least 90 days or longer, structure things, and then see how things are playing out before he makes any moves on anything else.
Absolutely. What do you mean by that, though?
Let Jeff structure things and see if we really need another full-time position.
Yeah, so it's exactly what the stamp's recommendation was. And again, it's not adding any cost to what we have already allocated. So the budget in there is to keep everything within our budget. And this is just reallocating the current budget of what we have staffing-wise, and allowing to be able to do that. But yes, we'll obviously work with him within that. But again, this is following exactly what the stamp's recommendation was to be able to do that.
The only problem is going back to the staff, findings and so forth. 2022, we're going to start going to the negative, if I remember right. And I'm just looking out down the road.
Sure.
Situation, unless things increase dollar-wise, and you can't take everything out of the police department, you kind of take things across the board. So anyhow, I'll second that motion.
No, wait a minute, I got a question. Will there be either a 90-day or a 3-month or 6-month evaluation?
It will be the same evaluation that we would have for all other supervisors.
Okay.
And will he be learning all the job responsibilities of everybody underneath him, so therefore he could fill in if something would go wrong or someone out with illness or something like that? Would he be learning all the job responsibilities of everyone?
That would be the hope, again, of a supervisor in any department, is that they know, what each of their employees are doing, so that way, if need be, they can fill in where necessary.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Oh, stop it.
Brochus,
Yes.
Heister,
Yes.
Karlovich,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have a supervisor for code department. Jeff, or if you're online, if you don't mind.
I'm on. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
Okay. Hey, do you want me to introduce myself to everybody and tell you my history, tell you where I'm at today?
Yes, if you don't mind briefly.
Okay, no, I'll be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. My wife and I, we live here in Sunbury. We have 4 kids together. I have a Washington, D.C. policeman, college senior, a 10th grader at Schick, and a 3rd grader at Schick. I was in the Pennsylvania National Guard for 12 years, and I retired last September from the Department of Corrections. I was a sergeant with 27 years in corrections. So I said, leadership, I got it. Union, I was union president for 6 years. I said, contract-wise, I said, I think I can be an asset. Moving forward, contract, grievances, I've handled them. Heart and lung cases, I've handled those. So if I can be an asset that way, I'm more than willing to be helpful that way. Now, presently today, I am the Northumberland County Veterans Affairs Director, and I said I'll be resigning that position tomorrow. But if you guys don't mind, I was hoping the 8th of March as a start date, because I want to give the transition with my replacement. I want to give him as much as I can, as quickly as I can. So I'm asking for like 10 days, 9 days.
Yeah, that's fine. 2 weeks notice. That's understandable.
I want him to be. I don't want to leave the veterans down, but I said I want to make the transition as easy as possible for him.
Thank you. Yep, we'll work with that. Thank you.
How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Wojciechowski.
I wasn't close.
Nah, you were close. Listen, I've heard it, guys. I've heard it all. In 50 years, I've heard it all.
All right. Well, thank you and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Reese. Thanks, Council.
All right. Councilman Brochus, street sweeping.
All right. Street sweeping schedule. Just a quick background. We are going to be switching from, obviously, from nighttime sweeping to daylight sweeping. Steve put a lot of time into the new schedule. It was sent out first reviewed it once, reviewed it again. All changes that everyone suggested, we tried to play the best we can, and everyone has an updated schedule as of what the new street sweeping schedule will be. So I put into a form of motion to accept the new daytime street sweeping schedule. Do I have a second?
Well, what are the hours of this sweeping schedule?
It was on the pamphlet that was sent out, and it was sent out in the documents. It was in your folder if you picked it up, but it's from 7:30 to.
And I'm sure there's going to be adjustments made as you go.
Yes, if something is not working or it can be cut down, those adjustments will be made. But we want to get this out to the citizens as quickly as possible so they're aware of it. and so they can obviously get adjusted to the new schedule that's being implemented.
And when are you planning initiating the schedule if it was passed?
When the normal street sweeping schedule would begin, which would be March 15th.
If we can get all the signs.
Yeah, if we can get all the signs up, and obviously that's up to the weather. If there's obviously snow on the ground, we can't start it then. But as of March 15th, that is the tentative start date. And if anything should change from that, the citizens will be made aware of that in a timely manner that they're aware and when it will be started.
All right. And Steve, I saw that you had it, the original schedule that was sent out for review. It was like a split schedule with the streets. What was the reasoning for changing it to a 5-hour block of time?
That was under recommendation from the chief there.
Yeah, the recommendation was leave it the whole way, right? Just that way it's easier for enforcement.
Right.
I still have, for me personally, I still have a hard time with the 7:30 across the board because a lot of the schools still aren't in yet. Parents are getting their kids ready for school. They're not out the door yet. You're asking them basically to move their car the night before still. I still don't, I get it. I get the staffing. I still think that all other streets outside of Market should be a 9 a.m. or later start time. I can't get behind the 7:30. I'm one vote, but I can't get behind the 7:30.
Chris, I think things will change as they're out there running into the situation.
Yeah, but we're not voting on as it changes. We're voting on the current schedule.
All right, I'm just going to make the motion to accept the schedule as is. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Eister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
No.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese.
No.
Is that a no?
Yeah, no.
Brocious?
Yes. And Derek, could you put this on the city Facebook page and on the website so it's out in the public so people can start viewing it as well, please? Thank you.
Yep.
And Chris,
I think you're gonna need more. You're gonna need a more contact than that, Josh. I mean, last year when we changed, when we did the date change, because you guys are going to a new date as well now, because we had put in a policy 2 years ago that it was going to be the same date starting every year and the same day ending every year to try to eliminate the confusion. So if you're going to go to a new date, I think you got to go back to the placards on the cars, like you did, like we used to do, where you individually placard every single vehicle in the city.
Yeah, that's not an issue. I just said since we have the paper copy right now, just put that out there. Like I said, we can do the placards on the cars and all those things to make the citizens aware. Like that's not an issue. Yeah.
And Chris, I had suggested also before all the signs are put up, run it a while by using the flyers on the windshield, working with the public because the mayor had said before we weren't going to take and be ticketing because we're switching over to a new system. Before you make up the signs, they have to come back and change the sign.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And we could put this, give this to WKOK and Daily Item as well.
All right, your Councilman Broch's road closures. You're muted.
What was that, Mr. Mayor?
Your road closures?
Okay, road closures. So there's some road closures coming up here. I'm just gonna do them all in one shot. Christmas in July on July 17th, Riverfest on October 13th and 14th, National Night Out on October 3rd. I make the motion to have these road closures pending the UGI construction. Obviously, if they're in that work area, obviously we cannot have it then, but if they are all done, I make the motion to have these roads closed for those events. So I have a second.
Second.
Chris, was that you second?
Sure.
Karlovic?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Reese?
Yes.
Brocious?
Yes.
Eister?
Yes.
All right, Councilman Eister, the bid process for Curling.
Yes, in your package, you had the big documents for the parking lot, rear of City Hall, 4th Street. There's another little alley there, South Center, alongside of City Hall, and there's a section there belongs to the county. I think there's, what, Steve, 7 or 8? There's a total of 6. 6, I'm sorry, parcels. What we'll be doing is going out for bids, and then, of course, council has to sit down and decide what we're going to do with the bids. Any questions?
Where are we planning on getting the funding for all this?
Well, it's something we have to discuss because we have definitely a situation in the parking lot at the rear of the structure because of the fact it needs maintenance badly. Of course, CareerLink has notified us in writing that their concerns about their employees. Of course, our employees park back there also. And it's something that has to be addressed. So that's what we're doing. At least we'll get it out, get the bids, we'll know the numbers, and go from there. Any other
motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Was that a motion, Jim, to go for bid?
Motion, I'm sorry, Chris.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes. All right, Mr. Backer, grant process.
We had a conversation about the grant process and having all grants voted on by council prior to applying for any grant. I wanted to just have a formal vote and have that on the record that we would, prior to any grant application being submitted, that it will go to council for their approval.
Are you speaking in regards to all grants that are applied for, or just the grants that the city or the municipality would need a monetary portion towards it?
I was proposing all grants.
I think all grants should go through because they all have to be audited and kept to file. It's much easier if they're all in one hand.
I agree, Chris, because we need the documentation for the audit. Exactly. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. We spend the money, we don't have the proper documentation.
Yep. One question on that, because we do in the police department traffic grants and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure how involved you wanted to get in that. It's like a reimbursement kind of thing for payment for salary. So I just wasn't sure how you wanted to work that, but we can talk about that tomorrow if you'd like.
I think they still would have to go through, at least through Derek, so he knows about them. If nothing else.
But I know it has to be the police officer is the one that has to monitor all the funding and grant stuff. But I mean, I can go over with Derek. I can talk to him tomorrow about that.
Yeah, whatever the process is.
Yeah, and the reason I'm just looking for council to have basically a working knowledge of, these grants are being applied for and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about the inner workings of your process, but just more so that it's brought to their attention so they know that we're going for it. Especially in your case, it's a reimbursement. They know you would have to front the money versus, getting it up front. So
Okay.
So
all right, I'll get with you then this week.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept that process.
I'll second it.
Reese,
Yes.
Brochus,
Yes.
Meister,
Yes.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Mr. Backer, council meetings.
Last council meeting, we talked about a few changes to how we conduct our council meetings and what platforms they would be on. After taking into some consideration from the public and as well as talking to our solicitor, Joel, we came up with this for our current state of affairs for some of it. And we could change it as far as the Zoom if council decides to continue Zoom later after pandemic is done and we can continue in person. But we could address that at a later date as far as the Zoom aspect is concerned. But this is for now as far as the Zoom goes. And if we decide to change at a later date, we'll have to go through this process again. We're proposing that the second Monday of each month will be discussion-only meeting for topics. No votes will be taken other than housekeeping. Approval for minutes meetings, meeting minutes, payment of bills, and emergency votes as needed. And fourth Monday of each month will be the voting meeting based off of topics discussed at the previous meeting as much as possible. The reason for this is in our current state, we can discuss something and then vote on something all in one meeting, and we're not able to give the general public time and sufficient time to properly assess things and then also comment on those topics. This will give them time to adequately submit comments or ask to be heard during a meeting and really base their discussion and their conversation with council based off the discussion that takes place from council. So I know they can talk about agenda items currently, but they might want to base their comments off of the discussion that takes place with council. All public comments or requests to speak about agenda topics must be pre-submitted via email or directly in writing to the city clerk's office by noon the day of the meeting. The reason for that is just to for clarity and also process, just to make sure that we don't have individuals just shouting out things and things of that nature, and we have some clarity and processes in place to make sure that that does not happen. All public comments or requests to speak on non-agenda item topics must be pre-submitted via email directly in writing to the city clerk's office by 12 noon the day of the meeting. Same reasoning. No public comments other than those pre-submitted as set forth herein will be addressed to the at any city council meeting. Reason is it's hard to keep track of chats. Make sure you get every comment depending on what the topics are. And if we miss any of those, that could become an issue at a later date if something is not read. By putting all those three into a vote and putting those out into the public, we will be within our rights then to have the set requirements, and we don't have to read the comment or have to hear the comments from the chat and possibly miss something, which is quite honestly my fear. Because they do get a little, depending on the topics, they do come flying in. And all agendas and Zoom IDs will be provided on the city's website no later than 48 hours prior to the council meeting. We actually already put a council meeting button on the homepage of the website. And the reason for that was the agenda was kind of buried into our website. And it was a little difficult for the general public to come to find. So we took that constructive criticism from the public and decided to put a actual button that is just right on the homepage, and that will automatically link to where the agendas and Zoom ID will be, and the Zoom ID will be on there. And I'm looking for... Sorry, go ahead.
So, Derek, the way you have this written, please correct me here. The public comment portion at the end of every meeting. So you're saying the public will no longer be able to state their name and state a public comment at the end of every meeting on the Zoom, unless they pre-submit the question or the comment?
They don't have to pre-submit a comment. They could just put their name and say, hey, I want to be heard at the end of the meeting. They don't have to actually submit a document saying anything. Just your name could be added to a list also. This is just the pre-submitted via email or writing would be more if they don't want to attend and they want to be want to still read into the minutes, basically.
I think that's how the school district does it right now too.
I know other municipalities do it this way as well.
Just gives you an idea of, who's going to be commenting, and you know how many people are going to be attending too. So it makes it a little bit easier for you.
And also
The only
makes
one
it
that I would
easier
say
for
that
time management ones as well.
The only one that out of the list for me that I don't necessarily think we need pre-submitted comments for is on agenda items. Only because those are things that are going to be voted on that night. And if someone just, if it's important to them and we're about to take action, but they didn't get their comment in time, they wouldn't be able to speak. I feel like that one we don't really, if someone has an agenda item comment, we could let them make that only on the agenda items. Because anything not agenda, yes, they should be submitting that prior to, I feel like as well. I've always felt that.
Yeah, I agree with Chris on that. Like on the agenda items only, that if they miss the time slot, they should still be able to, on that day or at the meeting, still be able to come.
Yeah.
No, truthfully, I can agree with that. So that's completely fine.
The other ones I think will make it a lot easier to do a work session and a voting meeting. We can get a lot accomplished doing it that way.
And I was concerned also with really the general public being able to talk about or comment on the discussion that takes place from council to base what they want to say based around the discussion that takes place on the general topic from council.
Yep. Makes sense.
Derek, I have a question about the Zoom ID. Now, I remember before you talked about, now, is the Zoom, can they still access the Zoom ID even if they show up late, or it's only accessible if they request it, or how's that work?
So we're just gonna put the Zoom ID in that button that is on the home page. Once you click that, the agenda will be there and the Zoom ID. So regardless, it's gonna be on our page. Yes, correct. Regardless, talking to the general public, we wanted to alleviate concerns as far as accessibility and things of that nature. I just wanted to put it on the home page and not make the general public call in and things of that nature for it.
Makes sense.
This is John Bukovic.
So what happens if...
Can everybody hear John Bukovic?
Yeah.
You may recall that City Council approved an agreement with a developer for an extension of time to submit and resubmit his development plan. The last opportunity to vote for council either to disapprove, approve, or extend again the time limit for the land development plan submission will come, I believe, the second meeting in May. I'm not absolutely sure of the month, but there will have to be some provision made because the premise of the extension was based on an opportunity to vote on that the second Monday of the month. So
I see what you're saying. So okay. But emergency votes can be made as needed.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, as long as the vote can be made if needed, then that'll solve that problem. Thank you.
Hi, Derek. Jerome Alex. Derek, can you hear me? This is Jerome Alex.
Yes, Jerome, I can hear you.
I agree with everything that you're saying there. And the school district does do something like that from what I understand at their meetings. They have a paper that you write and give it before the meeting to be able to speak during the public session of it. However, what I want to point out to you is that I think you need to be a little more lenient at times, because during a work session or during a public meeting, if issues come up that are not on the agenda or comments are made, I believe it's only fair that the public get an opportunity to ask questions regarding any of those extraneous comments that may be made, and that seems to happen at different times. And if you're only going to go by the written comment or written request for comments, then that eliminates that whole process.
The only thing that I would disagree on that, Jerome, is those comments that like you're talking about that may be made, those are made not as voting items though. So if a vote was to be taken on something of a comment that was made, it would come back around as a vote. So then someone would have the ability to make a comment on that at a future meeting.
No, I said no.
Well, that could very well be true, Chris, but there could also be an opportunity for, if the motion is made by the council members, then the vote would be taken at that time.
We cannot with the new changes, we can't just randomly make motions for things that aren't on the agenda anymore. So you can only motion for something that's on the agenda as a voting item. If you want to vote on it out, so like something different, you have to bring it to the next meeting. So we can't just randomly vote on anything without it being on the agenda now. Does that answer it all?
Oh, that's good.
Anybody have any other questions?
All right, so when we're hosting the Zoom calls, I want to be able, the members of the public have access to state their comments and not have to pre-submit a comment, as long as they're stating their names. Because what happens if something comes up with a member of the public? They attend one of our Zoom meetings, and then they're waiting throughout the whole meeting. They get to the public comment periods, they state their name, but because they didn't pre-submit a comment to the city clerk's office, now we can't hear them out.
That's exactly what we're saying, Kurt, though, that they should pre-submit it. That's how
I think if it's on...
Go ahead.
And it's not necessarily pre-submitting a comment either. They could ask. They don't have to submit a comment. They could just literally say, "Hey, I want to make a comment on a non-agenda item or an agenda item." But at this case, Chris' recommendation was take off the non-agenda item. And am I correct in that saying that, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. I think that.
So they would only have to do that for agenda items, and they don't have to actually write something. They could just say, "I want to make it. I want to talk about X on the agenda topics." Okay, then their name's put down. So they don't actually have to write something. It's just put their name on a list to be heard.
Yeah, because Kurt, a lot of times people will bring something to us, and if they have not pre-submitted or anything, we have absolutely no idea what they're even talking about. If it's a pre-submitted comment, and even if, again, they don't have to submit it, but if it's pre-submitted, they know it's coming, we know it's coming, they can come on, they can talk about it, we can do the research, come back to them the next meeting, bring them what they're looking for. Or if they pre-submit their actual comment, we may even have an answer for the comment when they come to be able to make it more beneficial for them. And that, again, this isn't something that's just, hey, Sunbury's doing this. This is how most meetings are run, where you have to pre-submit at least that you want to be put on the list for a comment.
And also changing it to having one discussion meeting for the most part, and then also one voting meeting, was to allow individuals to hear those discussions, to actually say, hey, I want my name on a list to talk about the discussion prior to the vote at the next meeting.
And just going something off what the mayor said, that remember, the comments are just for wherever the time slot is. Like, it's not a discussion; it's just going to get the comment in. So I do agree with them. As long as they state their name, and I honestly they should state their name and where they live at as well, if they're going to leave a comment. And like I said, remember, the comments are not for discussion. It's for them to leave their comment, and then obviously then we can reach out to them later on. Like I said, I think if we stick to like the limited time period that they're allowed, I think that can cut down on the time as well. But I am with Kurt on saying that as long as they state their name, they should be allowed to comment at the end.
And are you talking about both on agenda and non-agenda items, or just on agenda items or non-agenda items?
I'm talking about non-agenda items as well. Just at the end of the meeting, if there is a comment, that they can just state their comment, and that's it. Like I said, I think the biggest thing that we get into trouble is that we have conversations or discussions when it's just a comment, and that is it.
No, and I agree with that. So if we were to make a motion, it would be not including the public comments on non-agenda topics at the end.
Agenda items.
That would be excluded from that.
The agenda items, Derek, are asked about when the meeting opens.
Yeah, that's
correct.
Take the opportunity to discuss them then.
Yeah,
I don't feel they should be able to discuss them at the end of the meeting.
Nope, agenda items will just be on the agenda items. If the way that the motion would go currently would be agenda items, individuals would have to pre-submit something that they want read into the minutes, or they would have to have their name put on a list that they want to be heard on an agenda topic. That's it. The non-agenda topics, those individuals can be heard at the end without any pre-submitted comments or asking to be put on a list.
Yep, no, yeah.
They should all be heard, but as you said, it should be a comment.
Yeah. Okay, now you explain it like that, I understand what you're saying. Yes, I get it.
Okay. And that was based off of Chris's recommendation, which I could agree with, actually, now that he said that. So I don't think the non-agenda topic should be on there as far as pre-submitted, only for agenda topics.
I agree.
Does anybody have any other questions?
No, I'll motion to do that.
Second.
Exactly as you just described it.
Second.
Karlovic,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Reese,
Yes.
Brocious,
Yes.
Heister.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
We're still accepting letters of interest for the Citizen Police Advisory Commission. We are accepting applications for a full-time police officer. The deadline for the application is March 19 at 4 p.m. You can contact the city clerk's office. The next council meeting is March 8th via Zoom. Is there any public comment?
Kurt, yes, this is Victoria Rosencrantz. I have a few things I would like clarified. So, first question is in reference to the city controller. That moved really fast tonight. And so my first question is, at one point I heard someone ask if Lisa, and I think it was Mr. Brocious, asked if Lisa was on the call. I'm not sure. I guess I'm taking it that that was the other candidate. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Was that candidate asked to be on the city council meeting tonight to be interviewed?
Was no interview process that was necessary for that appointment. Neither, those were just spur of the moment questions. All we asked for was to have a letter of interest submitted, and then they submitted what they wanted to submit at that time. Those are where the decisions were made off of.
Okay. So the letters were just submitted. The council read the letters, and then you decided from there who was best suited for that position. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. So please explain to me moving forward. So my understanding was during the discussion, so Mr. Alex will fulfill this. And so my question is, will there somebody need to run now for the controller in November?
Yes.
Okay, so that means somebody, so right now, if someone runs to run for controller, they should be circulating a petition?
That's a Joel question. Because I don't know how the county, the Board of Elections works that, where if it's someone doing this, if they only have to petition for November, or if they have to do the primary as well. I don't know if Joel has an answer for that.
It may depend upon a political affiliation as well, as to how that's going to work with the primary, and with the primary being so close. I actually, when asked that question by some members of council, I directed them to the county the county voting office to have those questions answered if they wanted, because I'm not even sure, to be honest with you.
Okay, because my concern, my concern here is that if that's the case, then the public needs to be aware that he would, obviously they'll be aware that he was appointed, and however that is obviously be in the paper or whatever, but I think the general public needs to be aware that they can run for this office if they choose to. So I will make the call. I'll call and ask those questions myself as well. So I guess my other question is why did Mr. Saxton have to resign based on getting an interview for the position that was for the public safety? Why did he have to resign for that?
I can answer, or Joel, would you rather answer that? But I can answer. I can say why I didn't do the interview without that. But I don't know if Joel would rather answer that from a legal standpoint.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I was muted.
It's okay.
I was talking, but nobody could hear me. The answer to the question is that under the current state of the law, there is a rule that says that you cannot be considered for employment while in the position of controller, or whatever it may be, or a city council member, any of those things. And the reason is because of the appearance, at least, of impropriety, that person would have special influence over being hired. So that's why, quite honestly, the resignation had to be made before Mr. Saxton could even be considered for the position, and before they could schedule an interview with him, etc., because otherwise it would have been very apparently, there would have been a very apparent impropriety that, if he had been given the job, it could have been because he was the city controller, or in this case, anything else.
Okay. I just have one other question. I was doing a walkthrough downtown on Market Street, and there by the dollar store, which is a city parking lot or whatever, there's like a huge dip in the pavement, and somebody's fallen there and has a fracture. Is that going to be addressed to fix that pavement? Because it's definitely a safety issue, not just for people walking, jogging, or in a jazzy or a wheelchair or whatever. Is that on the radar to be looked at?
Victoria, yes. When the weather breaks, we'll be working on that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Victoria, on your question, I talked to the Board of Elections, or Nathan Savage and Caleb. I'm going to review what needs to be done, because the controller's position would be what's called a special election, and whatever the has to be done for that. I would imagine that there's going to have to be some kind of petitions done, but for sure I don't know. But it's going to be treated as a special election. It's not going to be done as normally, like the primaries and stuff like that. But whatever regulations there are for the special election will have to be followed for that in January.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the general public's aware that they can run if someone so chooses. And obviously that would happen. I just wanted to see what the process was and how soon that would happen. So thank you.
Any other audience comments?
Hi, this is Megan Beck. If I could speak for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Number one, I want to say congrats to Jerome. Glad to see you involved in that position. Also, one of the things I would mention in regard to the whole public comment issues, and I think what you've negotiated to makes the most sense, and I appreciate that. One thing I would say though is I did submit some items, I guess because I wasn't sure how public comment would work at this meeting. And I guess there will have to be a process of some sort to announce those at the meeting, if there is such a thing. If we're encouraging people to actually submit public comment. I mean, it sounds like maybe we just are supplying our name and then we have the ability. But if there's, if someone submits a comment, that I'm not quite sure what the process flow should be that gets presented to the council. If that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
Okay. And just so that everyone's aware, I mean, I know you had mentioned about the chat function and Zoom, and sometimes that's challenging. And there was a little bit of chat in regard to the UGI questions, or questions in regard to the UGI commentary. I think the gentleman who represented, I think it was Chris Rosini, he's no longer on the call. But some of the questions that were presented there that perhaps the council could look into was if they could be put on the sides of the building or the rear of the buildings. And also, I know part of what I submitted via email was on UGI's website, it even mentions about federal historic districts, to get in conversation with UGI to make sure that we are able to maintain, our historic district. The 180 meters was pretty mind-blowing to hear that. There was also a question on there about will they be digital meters? And just want to make sure people were aware of those questions that came through the chat. Although I think that can be blocked. Perhaps, Derek, whenever you set up the next Zoom, you might be able to do that so that you don't have that issue.
Also on those UGIs, I saw those pop in, and I was going to say something, but then I also realized he said during his portion that they would be contacting each individual property owner to go over the meters. Right. So I think it'll be a case-by-case thing.
Do they have to get a permit from the city to do that work? And if so, I guess, wouldn't that be something that should go through HARB?
No, I don't believe they have to get a permit for that. The reason I was questioning on whether the sidewalks would be, but I think that since it's in the right-of-way, it wouldn't be a city permit. It would be a PennDOT permit, but we can double-check on that.
Okay. And then I had also, the last thing that I had was a question about, this has been sort of an ongoing topic of the square footage in the downtown, and I was just hoping that could be revisited as a question, just to at least make it fair with the rest of the community. And if you could potentially put that on as an agenda item at some point, I would really appreciate that.
What'll be nice now with how we're structuring the meetings, that can actually be added on as a discussion topic to one of the work session meetings. Okay. So that we can facilitate actual discussion around it in a public setting.
Okay.
So that can be definitely something that can be added onto that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Any other public comment?
This is Tammy Kinsman here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So in regards to the public comments, obviously, especially as a business owner who is now undertaking a big building and remodeling and trying to keep up with all of these council meetings just to know what's going on, is there a way that we could be automatically applied to having a chance to talk at the end of the meeting, just in case something does come up that I wouldn't have thought I would have had a question, but then I had to question something that was said? I don't obviously want to be able to miss that opportunity and have that chance to ask a question if I misunderstood.
The way it's set up, you'll have to contact the office each time.
And the what you're referring to is the agenda items, and the agenda items will only be discussed at one meeting, and then you'll have a chance to ask to be put on basically a list to be heard, and then you can talk about it before it takes a vote for next time, so you won't have to worry about a vote coming in prior to you asking questions or addressing any concerns that you have with the council.
So we only get the chance to talk like once a month.
No, if you have... Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that everyone would get the chance to talk once a month at those meetings, because those are the meetings. But then we have the discussion meetings, or you can call the offices or call us anytime outside of the meeting, if that makes sense. But yeah, everyone would have then the same ample time to talk at the meeting. And
you could form your thoughts and discussion based off of the council's discussion prior to a vote, which doesn't necessarily take place at this point.
Okay, so then I guess my next question is, let's say it's just a generic comment, something came up shortly before a meeting that I thought needed to be addressed, and will I have that repeat option of just being able to talk just in case, and it's not an agenda item?
Yep, you would do the same. What you're doing currently would be how it would be conducted at the end of a meeting on a regular basis.
So the person in charge of taking my name and putting it on a list to be able to talk at a comment or at the end of a meeting, is there any way that they can just put it on automatically every other week?
You won't have to have your name on a list for non-agenda items. So at the end of the meeting, public comments are for non-agenda items. So agenda items, you will have to have your name basically on a list to be heard, or pre-submit a comment. If it's non-agenda items, then you just have to do what we're doing here currently. And you don't have to have your name on the list. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Any other public comments tonight?
Yeah, sorry, this is Victoria again. I had one more question. So, obviously you didn't do the announcement. No more. You're not doing Facebook Live for people to watch. So my question is, and Derek, I know you and I discussed this, and I forget what was said. So, for those that miss being on Zoom and we're not on this meeting, are these being taped and are going to be able to be on the city site for them to watch?
Videos are not going to be posted on the city site. Individuals, if they would like the meeting, can request them, but they're not going to be posted on the city site.
Minutes are always kept, too.
Why?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I'm aware of the minutes. Okay, I just because people were asking me that, and Derek, I couldn't remember what obviously you had to discuss that or whatever. So, okay, very good. But so again, I'm understanding if they can call to the city clerk's office and request it be emailed to them or whatever, the video. Is that what you're saying?
The recordings are only saved until the approval of the minutes.
Okay. Yes. So they can just read the minutes and then go from there. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Okay, one more question. Tammy again. So obviously our community is having trouble accessing Zoom, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. So if someone were to step up and stream this Zoom meeting and hold a gathering, so to speak, so it gives our community a chance to listen to these meetings and or ask questions, is that technically legal?
Yeah.
I mean, currently it's not illegal to do any of those things. It's just strongly advised by the CDC and PA Department of Health to adhere to all COVID guidelines, but it is not illegal to have gatherings on a non-city land, because the city does have their own guidelines that need to be adhered to for city property. Does that help?
It does. So as long as there's not more than 50 people indoors at a meeting off of city property, that's fine.
Correct. Whatever the PA Department of Health guidelines are at that time, then that's what we recommend follow.
Okay.
All right. Any other public comments tonight?
This is Megan back again. I just was hoping for one more clarification. Sorry, these meeting changes are quite a big change from how things had been being done. At the discussion meeting, I believe the first meeting of the month, you said, is there time for public discussion and comment during that discussion meeting, or Will there be agenda items where we would need to register in advance or public comment? I mean, just if you could clarify that first meeting, how the discussion meeting would work now.
So the discussion meeting, there would be no votes taken unless it was an emergency, pay bills, approve minutes, things of that nature. But that would be discussion only. And at the end of the meeting, it would just be the regular, like we're doing now currently for comments. We will hear comments on agenda items at the beginning if there are any. Although I don't think there will be too much based off of the way we're operating, because it would kind of defeat the purpose of individuals hearing what the council has to say about the agenda item and then forming their own comments or opinions based off of the discussion to be heard before the vote. Now, if individuals could want to say something before the discussion happens and then before the vote, that's quite possible as well. So yes, to your answer that individuals will have the opportunity to talk about agenda items prior to discussion, and also the same at the end. They just don't have to be pre-submitted.
And Megan, when we explored this, I think back when I first came on council, and we explored it again back when Jody came on as administrator, we've been looking at it for a while, and it was always thought that these discussion meetings, there would be an agenda. And things like we did tonight, like the UGI stuff, that there was no vote needed. Those would be the things that would go on to like the discussion meeting instead of the regular meeting. And then also, if there was absolutely nothing needs to be discussed, then there wouldn't be a meeting. But then also, if we have all these work sessions that we're scheduling now, those could be done all within the discussion meeting to make it easier, put more in there, as long as we're not overloading it. But it would all be discussion based. Right. So yes, there will be agendas, I guess, the quick answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments tonight?
Hello, it's Lindy Lloyd. I just have a real quick question. I can tell you guys are ready to be done with this. I just have a question. So the street sweeping schedule that was voted on and approved, that is for the benefit of who again? For the police department?
It was to benefit I would say it's one entity or one business or one person benefit. It was for the purpose of changing it from daytime to nighttime in hopes to help the residents with the parking situation, in hopes that most residents are at work when this takes place. That's less likely got a fine. Also on the new schedule, a lot of the streets are being alternated, meaning only being done twice bi-weekly, so that's less before it was done weekly. Also,
but you still got to move your cars, Josh. You got to be careful on that.
Well,
so
yeah.
The citizens still got to move their cars because it's a no parking ordinance still, not a street sweeping ordinance.
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit the residents on that end. That's a benefit to DPW.
My concern is just that a lot of people are leaving for work at that time. The street sweeping is going to interfere with the traffic of people trying to drive. I mean, I live on a street that's very narrow. You can't get past. If I'm trying to take my child to school at 7:30 and the street sweeper's coming down my street, so I'm going to have to sit there and wait for the street sweeper. You know, my concern is that that's going to really interfere with people's schedules, school buses, people going to work. There's more traffic at that time in the morning than there is at night when people are asleep. I feel like this is going to be a huge inconvenience for the residents, and I feel like you're going to see a lot of backlash from this move. I think it was just a very poor decision all around. I'm not understanding who this benefits here, because I don't think it's benefiting the residents of Sunbury. Most residents don't have off-street parking and have very narrow streets. So, I mean, I guess that's something you guys are going to have to deal with when it comes. But I just not quite comprehending how it's benefiting the residents.
All right, thank you. And like I said, we'll take that feedback as it comes in, so we can address it as it goes.
Okay, I guess that means there's no answer to that question. All right, that's what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other audience comments tonight?
Hi, this is Lori Johnson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You have to realize that if you're going to be changing the times or the days for street sweeping, there is signs put up in all these different roads about not parking for certain times. So all of those signs have to be taken down. They either have to put up new signs or new times or new days or whatever you're going to do. I don't personally think it's a great idea to be doing this during the day. I am with Lindsay. You have businesses, you have people, you have buses, and I don't think it's a good idea. The other thing I wanted to talk about is whatever this UGI thing is doing, I'm glad they're going to be contacting the businesses, and I'm glad Jim's trying to do the historic thing, and hopefully that will work out for everybody. And then I'd also like to thank the city for everything that they're doing to help all the businesses and the people downtown with trying to help them last summer with everything that happened with the COVID thing. Thank you very much.
Any other audience comments tonight?
I think Erica has the comment, her hand's raised. You there, Erica? Hello? Oh. Guess not.
Is there any other audience comments? All right. Thank you all for joining the meeting tonight. This meeting is now adjourned. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.